Hi, welcome to Home Farm. Today we're down in the vegetable garden. This is our midsummer vegetable update, and we're also going to be harvesting the first of our vegetables. So we're in the midst of a heat wave at the moment in the UK. Today our temperature on our home weather station system registered 32 degrees, so it was really hot, which is why we've come down to the vegetable garden. It's actually 8 p.m. now and it's 26 degrees. Like I said, it was just unbearable to come out here and film in the afternoon. And what's really nice about this time of the evening is that we've got a lot of the wildlife that have actually come out because the temperatures have cooled. So we've got wild pheasants running around, we've got the sheep in the fields next door, there's all kinds of animals around. At this time last year, I jokingly said to Kirsten that I'd beaten gardening because this vegetable garden was just a wall of green. There was green up the trellises, the beds were full, everything was absolutely incredible. And it just goes to show just how dependent we are on weather. So last year it was just the perfect temperatures at the right times of year. So May was really hot. So when we planted everything out, it had a really good amount of heat to actually establish. This year, May was a complete washout. It was cold. June was overcast and a bit miserable. And as a result, a lot of the plugs and a lot of the seedlings, because we actually grew the bulk of what you can see around us from seed, has really struggled to establish. So there are some things like the beans, for example, that are still not actually getting going. Some of the cucumbers are looking a little bit weak. So it just goes to show just how you just need weather to play and cooperate with you when it comes to gardening. We used grow tunnels for the first time this year, so we've actually got 2 in the 2 beds where we actually put lettuce in. So quite thankfully, because we had those, the actual lettuce was able to establish. We've also got some cabbages that were actually in there. We also planted a lot of kale, so the miserable weather that we did have, or the cold weather, didn't really impact that. But when it comes to things like the beans, the peas, the tomatoes, they've all struggled to get going, and it's only after this actual heat wave has actually hit us that we've seen a big boost in the actual growth of a lot of our vegetables. So we've taken a selection of Kirsten's baskets to actually start harvesting some vegetables today. We'll just go through some of the beds, point out some of the highlights, and like I said, we're going to harvest I think courgettes. We've got 2 monsters, we've got radar onions, and we'll probably go through some of the ambassador's sweet peas. So the first thing that we're going to start with is harvesting our shallots. This is the first time we've grown shallots. They are very different to actual onions the way they grow. So you can see this is actually an onion that we planted. You do get these little spring oniony bits. Shallots have an awful lot more of those, and they basically cluster. So let's get around to pulling some out and we'll show you what that looks like. So what you want to do at this stage is just very delicately with your hand, just get as much of the soil off them as possible. We've set up a drying rack up at the garage. We're going to leave those up there for probably about a week or 2 just so they can dry and cure. And that will hopefully mean that we will have shallots well into the winter. When it comes to the drying rack, you don't have to do anything fancy. We basically made one ourselves. We just took a couple of pieces of wood and ran some chicken wire across the top of that. Last year we actually just used the pallets, which was really great, because all you want to do is just make sure that the actual vegetables have got enough air movements around them so that they don't rot from the bottom, and you just want to make sure that you put them in the shade without direct sunlight. So that is what I call a monster haul of shallots. That is far more than I actually anticipated or expected. Really pleased with that. When I said that this should see us through into the winter, I think it certainly will. I think that is why Kirsten and I enjoy gardening as much as we do, especially growing your own, is you never quite know what you're going to get, and sometimes things exceed expectations, sometimes they're a bit disappointing. But you know, stuff like this really is gratifying, and it just makes you feel like you've actually accomplished something, and we're certainly going to enjoy eating those shallots. Speaking of frustrations, in this bed we've also been growing carrots. We've actually been fighting a little bit with rabbits this season. They've been breaking in intermittently into our actual vegetable garden and they've munched on them, so I'm not sure what kind of results we're going to get from the carrots. These are the actual grow tunnels that we were speaking about. We've removed the covers, we've kept the frames, so things like the cabbages and the lettuce are looking strong. This is an exciting bed at the moment. We're growing courgettes in this one. This is a variety called Romanesco latino. They are monstrous courgettes. We've got them growing here and in our raised beds outside the vegetable garden, which we'll show you in a minute. We're going to harvest this now, so let's actually give it a snip. We'll just take it off the top. Ah, brilliant. What I really like about these courgettes, because we have actually pulled one earlier, they've got a very thick skin on them. And what's really nice about that is when you put them on the barbecue, in particular, the actual firm skin retains the actual texture of the courgette, and the inside meat is really, really tender and really, really tasty. And growing over here, we've got cucumber. So this is one of the few things that we've actually grown from plugs. We picked this up from our local garden center. As you can see, we were actually training it to run up the trellis. They do grow small cucumbers. We've got one at the back that I'll harvest now. It should be abundant and we should be able to get a lot of cucumbers from this particular plant. So we've trailed this one up the actual trellis. You can, obviously, well, most cucumbers will actually just sprawl across the ground. But if they are growing up a trellis, some of the actual fruit might get a bit heavy. So because these ones are quite small, you can see when that's actually hanging from here, it's not going to put any weight or strain on the actual plant itself. So that's our first cucumber of the season, and this is going to go into a salad tomorrow. On this trellis, we've got ambassador peas growing. These have now literally taken off in the last week. They've been really, really small, which is, I think, the actual warm weather's had a lot to do with them actually getting going. There are quite a few now that have swelled up quite nicely. So I'll just cut one off now. You want to get them when they are nice and thick and juicy like that. You'll actually be able to feel the peas inside the actual pod. So that's when they're actually good, because just the other day I was just experimenting and I pulled one that was a little bit thinner than that, and the peas inside are still not fully formed. Now we're on to one of my personal favorites. When it comes to staples in cooking, few things beat a really good onion. This is a variety called Radar, and what I really, really love about these onions is their form and their size. They're just a fantastic sized onion for most meals, just for the two of us. Normally it's just Kirsten and myself that have dinner. So one of these onions is enough to add to just about any dish that you're doing, whether it's a stir fry or something as simple as a bolognese. And one of the things that I'm quite excited about is that for the first time, we're growing asparagus. It's going to take 3 years before we actually get to consume some of our own, but it is in, and it is in this bed, and we're really looking forward to that at some stage. So this is our new addition to the vegetable garden. These are raised beds that I built from upcycled pallets that I got from our local hardware store. And as you can see, things have gone a little bit berserk out here. We've got pumpkins growing in this bed, along with some gourd, which Kirsten's going to be using for decorations, maybe kind of autumn time. That is a variety called Mars, my namesake. We are going to be having an abundance of pumpkins at this rate, and I've got a lot of plans for them, everything from pumpkin chips to pumpkin soup, and my favorite, pumpkin porter, which is going to be a beer that we're going to be brewing ourselves. And then a great companion vegetable for pumpkins is sweet corn. So basically what I've done is I've grown the sweet corn on the back of all of the raised beds. That is west, this is east, so basically they don't get a lot of sun during the course of the late afternoon. Basically nothing's in shade, and it's working absolutely fantastic. And we've got the sweet corn growing in this bed, that one, and the one right at the end. And the last thing that we're going to do today, if you thought that that courgette was big, wait till you see this guy. He kind of took me a bit by surprise because he started growing and then we had a bit of a spell of bad weather, and I came out here and I was absolutely shocked as to how big he'd actually gotten. I might actually need a tractor to pull him out at this rate, but we're going to come out and we're going to harvest him right now. The variety is the same as the one that we're growing in the vegetable garden itself. It's called Romanesco latino, and everything about this courgette is enormous. Even the leaves are huge. I mean, look at the size of that in comparison to my hand. It's absolutely ginormous. Looking at the actual courgette itself, if I was to take a guess, I'd probably say that's about 50 centimeters long. And the one thing that I tend to find with courgettes is that sometimes they rot from the bottom if they're growing into the actual soil. So a trick that I've discovered is if you've got big leaves like this, let the tip grow over the actual leaf so it's not making contact with the soil, and that tends to prevent them from rotting. Alternatively, you can put a roof tile or maybe a piece of slate underneath the actual fruit to also prevent it from rotting, and that's something that we're going to be doing with our pumpkins. That is an absolute whopper. I reckon that this probably weighs anywhere between 1 and 2 kilograms, and I'm really happy that we didn't have to pay for this by the kilogram. All in all, for the first harvest of the season, I'm actually really pleased with that. Obviously, this isn't the full harvest. We've still got a lot more onions that we've got to process, but these are the ones that we're going to have space for to actually dry to start with. And the nice thing about onions is you can actually pull them on demand. So while these are curing and drying, if we do need an onion, I'll just come down here and actually pull some from the ground. So with this being the first harvest of the summer, we're really pleased with it. Obviously, we're going to be harvesting a lot more through the summer. Given that May and June were a little bit dodgy, we're really pleased with what we've been able to harvest today. And a lot of that has had to do with the fact that we have got good soil. We have been given a lot of eco-worm products to the different vegetables. We've also seen a big benefit to the tomatoes that we've been feeding. They've shot up in the last couple of days. So generally speaking, a good start, and I think we're going to be eating a lot more veg this summer. So I hope that you have found this video useful and interesting. If you did, please hit the subscribe button below, give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't done so already, please head over to our blog and our Instagram account, where we're going to be doing a lot more regular updates with regards to our vegetables. So thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you in our next video. Bye-bye.